Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for our latest Railbookers webinar, Exploring Spain. My name's Sam. I'll be talking you through some of our most popular rail holidays down to Spain and perhaps trying to inspire for your next getaway, maybe this year or into next year. So thank you again for being here today. For those that have joined us on our webinars before, you'll know that we spend the first few minutes just going through a little bit about who Railbookers are. So if you have seen this first piece before, then just indulge me for a few moments. But if it's your first time on a Railbookers webinar, then this is a great opportunity just to learn a little bit more about who we are before we jump into our Spanish holidays. So just a few things about Railbookers, what we do, why perhaps some people come to us for our expertise. So top middle there, you can see that we are able to book your holidays from today all the way through until 2023. We actually book up to 24 months in advance. So if you're somebody that's just seeing a country perhaps start to open up that you're looking to get to this year for a last minute holiday, we can start to get you away for late August, September. Alternatively, if you're looking at perhaps a bigger trip into 2022 or planning something even further ahead, perhaps into 2023, then we can start to look at planning those holidays for you well in advance and getting everything locked in ahead of time. So we book from today to 24 months out. We also offer maximum flexibility on our holidays. So for those of you that aren't aware, the holidays that you see on our website, the ones that you'll see in our webinars or on our brochures, are just ideas for you. You don't have to stick rigidly to those itineraries. We can add additional nights, add different destinations, change the standard of hotels, the class of travel. It is really up to you. It's your holiday after all. So these are just ideas that we put together for you. But if you wish to mix them up a bit, then just let us know. And of course, one thing to mention is it can be sometimes a bit complicated when you're looking at rail travel, especially across Europe. There's kind of a spider web of ways to travel. The rail networks kind of intertwine and can look a bit ominous when you're looking yourselves, but don't worry if you think that something might be a bit too tricky or a bit too difficult or looks like it might not be possible. Don't hesitate to give us a call. All our travel consultants are well versed on the rail lines, rail networks. They'll be able to plan the perfect trip for you. And if you don't see something that you like today, this is only scratching the surface. We do have the largest rail holiday selection for you out there on our website, so please do take a look. I mentioned those brochures. Plenty of brochures that we have digitally online now, all the way from our Railbookers Worldwide holidays, which includes most of our trips, to the more specialised brochures. We've introduced a UK and Ireland brochure this year because a lot more people were, of course, staying a bit closer to home. We also have a Spanish holidays brochure, which many people on here might like to download, and a luxury journeys brochure as well, perhaps if you're planning a special occasion. We do also have a maximum flexibility policy in place currently. Just gives you a bit of peace of mind, given everything that still continues to go on in the world right now. We're allowing our customers to change or amend their holidays up to 5 days before travel without any change or cancellation fees. So if you did think that you were looking to get away perhaps this year, maybe in late August or September, you wanted to get something locked in, but then closer to the time, maybe even up to a week beforehand, you thought perhaps things hadn't opened up as you would have liked, and you wanted to defer that trip into next year or change it to a different destination, you can do that absolutely free of charge with no change or cancellation fees. We really want to make sure that your money's secure as best as possible for you, given the current climate. So we do still have a maximum flexibility policy. That's for all bookings made until now, up until the end of September. But we're monitoring the situation. We could always extend that date if we need to. We do offer 24-hour support as well. We have offices around the globe, so London, US, Canada, and Australia. And what that means really is, regardless of where you are in the world or what time of day it might be, you should always be able to get through to somebody on our lines to be able to support you and help you while you're on your trip, should you need to. Again, just a bit of peace of mind for you when you're traveling. Just to look at some of the rail partnerships as well, of course, we specialize in rail, so we do have great relationships with all the rail partners globally, really, not just in Europe. So we have a selection here: Trenitalia, Deutsche Bahn in Germany, Via Rail in Canada, Belmond, who operate the Venice Simple Orient Express, one of our luxury partners, and Renfe, you see there, who operate the Spanish trains as well. So this allows us to make special requests for you to try and get you the best seats, the best views if you want to be upper deck, to try and secure those tickets and best pricing for you as early as possible. So we make sure that we have direct rail partnerships with every operator that we work with across Europe and North America especially. And finally, just a few things that rail operators are still doing to maintain a safe environment. So facial coverings are still required across Europe in stations and on trains for passengers and staff. Of course, you'll continue to see increased cleaning and sanitation as we would expect at stations and on board the trains as well. And the majority of tickets now will be e-tickets. They are contactless tickets. They won't necessarily be physical tickets anymore, much like most of our airline tickets have been for a while now. You'll have the e-tickets on your phone. You can print them out, of course, and take them with you. But a lot of stations now will operate on e-tickets as well as physical tickets. So the majority of tickets that we send you will be contactless and will be through email or on apps. However, if you would like physical tickets and it is possible for us to still provide them, just let us know and we'll be able to see what we can do to get them out to you in the post. Okay, so let's jump into our first holiday. That's why we're all here, of course, and we're going to look initially at our Andalusian Explorer. This is an 8-night, 9-day holiday, takes you down to the Andalusian region, get to explore 4 of the main cities, Malaga, Granada, Cordoba, and Seville. Does include flights in and out of Malaga. Now, if some of you are sitting there thinking, well, I'm on a rail because webinar, I didn't want to take any flights, I wanted to travel by train all the way. Of course, we can organise the train travel all the way down to Andalusia should you wish, no trouble at all. The Eurostar to Paris would be where you begin, and then the high-speed TGV down to Barcelona. You'd have a night in Barcelona and then a train down to the Andalusian region. You can travel back up via Madrid, and then it'll be back through France on the way back. We do understand that not everybody would have maybe 12, 14 days for their holidays. So, we do start with the flight option, which is what the price is based on. But absolutely, if you would look to do a return trip by rail, that's the same for any of the holidays that you see today. A lot of them do include flights in and out of Spain and then rail travel within Spain. But if you'd like the trains in and out of the UK all the way through, then of course we can organise that for you. But this one, as I say, starts with the flights to Malaga, 8 nights in the Andalusian region. We also include plenty of tours and activities in the region and skip the line tickets as well to make sure that you see the highlights and make the most of your time. So we do give you entrance to the Alhambra Palace in Granada, the Mezquita, the famous mosque, of course, in Cordoba as well, and the Royal Palace of Alcazar in Seville. One of the reasons that people travel down to this area is to experience those historical sites, the architecture. We want to make sure that you get to see that, and either you're not queuing for hours or perhaps even missing out because there's no availability. We make sure that you've got guaranteed entrance to those sites. So it starts in Malaga, as I mentioned, not just a beach destination. It's a really vibrant cultural city. It's got a really, really nice old town as well. An 11th century Moorish castle that overlooks the city. We do include entrance to the Picasso Museum as well. Picasso born famously in Malaga. Does also have some great historical and botanical gardens with stunning views over the city and the Mediterranean coast. So sometimes overlooked Malaga as a destination perhaps, and thought just as a beach destination, which of course it is. Got some wonderful beaches very close to the city as well for you to spend some time on. But as I say, a real vibrant, culturally rich city as well, with lots of things to see and do while you're there. So you have a couple of nights in Malaga to begin, and then it'll be off to Granada, and primarily to see the Alhambra in Granada. The reason many people travel down to Granada, the city itself is very nice, but the real reason is to see the Alhambra, kind of immerse yourself in Spain's Moorish past. It's perhaps one of the most, well, it is one of the most popular attractions in Spain, and perhaps the most beloved ones in all of Europe. I would say a fantastic monument to visit. Construction started back in the 11th century, and it's been kind of painstakingly restored over the years, so that the tourists and visitors make the most of the immaculate and spectacular architecture that now exists. There also has some very famous gardens, the Generalife Gardens, which you'll get to explore. And as I say, you get a skip the line ticket. You get a kind of a half day at your leisure to explore the Alhambra and the surrounding gardens, a must see when you're in the Andalusian region. We'll touch upon a couple of hotels as we go through the webinar as well, just to give you an idea of some of the accommodation that you'll be in whilst you're staying on these trips. The hotels that we tend to use around the region of Andalusia are called the Hospes hotels. They're a small group of hotels. They have hotels in Seville, Cordoba, Granada, and they have one in Madrid as well. In in Granada, it's the Hospes Palacio de los Peitos, which is a historical hotel right in the heart of Granada. It's very close to the cultural and artistic scene in Granada. It has two sides to the hotel. It has a 19th century converted palace area to it, which is the historical side. It has a more contemporary building as well. And guests can decide which rooms they'd like to stay in. The older rooms will have kind of mosaic floors, artistic ceilings, and those more contemporary rooms will have hardwood floors, crystal fixtures, a bit more minimalist. So it's completely up to you which side of the hotel you'd like to stay in. We need to check the availability, of course, but really nice, comfortable, relaxing, because a 4-star hotel in Granada, and all Railbookers guests who stay at the Hospes hotels do get a complimentary bottle of cava as well across Spain. So a nice little touch that they give our Railbookers guests when staying at these particular hotels. You'll also get to experience Cordoba, as I mentioned, very famous for the great mosque cathedral, the Mezquita, and you'll have a guided tour. So again, sometimes you'll get skip the line tickets, sometimes you get skip the line tickets with an expert guide. It just depends on what's on offer in the different cities. So you will get a private guided tour of the Mezquita, where you'll get to learn about the incredible history of it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Of course, it'll be a local guide, and you'll get to marvel at the architecture of the many eras of Cordoban history, stretching right back through the last millennia. So again, much like Granada, plenty to see and do in the city, but the one real standout, the one real highlight is the Mezquita. We do make sure in Cordoba that you get skip the line access and an expert guide of the mosque while you're there. The featured hotel in Cordoba is again the Hospes. This hotel actually houses the remains of a Roman villa from all the way back to the 1st century AD under its restaurant, which you can visit. And it's actually the only hotel currently that still exists with interior Roman baths as well. So very historical. The old manor part of the hotel was actually declared an asset of cultural interest many years ago. So a really, really nice cultural, historical place to stay. Lovely, luxurious rooms, nice open spaces, communal areas. Also has a fantastic garden, an oasis of fruit trees, aromatic plants, has an outdoor swimming pool as well. So really fantastic hotel to stay in. Again, these Hospes hotels are, in my opinion, up there with the top hotels to stay in when you're in this region. And they're not 5-star luxury, so they don't blow the budget. They're 4-star, but they're very well kept, very nice, and they're very cultural. So lovely places to base yourself for these holidays. And just lastly, not going to go into every part of every trip, just some recommendations as well as we go through. So you can always add an additional night to Malaga if you wish, and do a day trip out to Ronda. A lot of our guests ask if we do trips to Ronda, if they can stay in Ronda. That you can stay in Ronda. What we often recommend is perhaps having a additional night in Malaga, and then visiting Ronda, a very famous historical mountaintop city with some great views over the area. So it's only a small area, so you perhaps don't necessarily need a night there. You can just add a night into Malaga and do a day trip to Ronda, which we can include should you wish. Okay, so that's our first holiday there, the Andalusian Explorer. Now we're going to look at a different region of Spain. We're going to have a look at the Basque region with our Basque Explorer. This is a 10-day, 9-night trip, starting with travel through France into Bordeaux and then down to the Basque region on the northern coast of Spain, with 3 nights in San Sebastian and Bilbao, and then down to Madrid for a night, and then a flight back to London. Of course, if you would like to extend your time in Madrid, you can do. You'll get only a day in Madrid with this trip. We can extend that to 2, 3, 4 nights, whatever you'd prefer. But for this particular holiday, at the moment, the price is based on 1 night. That can be extended to as many nights as you please, of course. So Starts with a Eurostar departure out of London. Usually the departure, if trains are running to a normal schedule, which they're slowly getting back up to a normal schedule. And usually 12, 15 Eurostar trains would run a day. It was one a day. Now it's 3 or 4 a day. That will move to 6, 9, 12 as we move through the coming months into next year. But if the trains are running to schedule, it's about a 9 o'clock departure from London into Paris for just after midday, and then we offer metro tickets to you to get you across the stations in Paris. You do need to go from Gare du Nord to Gare de Lyon, and then you're on the high-speed TGV down to Bordeaux. A couple of nights in Bordeaux, as I say, and then off to the Basque region. Again, we include a couple of little tours and sites, and the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao. We also have some gastronomic tours, so you can sample the pinchos in the Basque region as well. But it starts with 2 nights in Bordeaux. We include a 2-day pass while you're in Bordeaux. Gives you access to all the museums and galleries that Bordeaux has to offer. And we also, of course, give you entrance to some of the winemaking facilities. So the Cité du Vin. We give you a skip the line ticket so you can learn about the world of wine. You learn about the wine region, Bordeaux itself, the way they make the wine, and of course you get to sample some of the wine whilst you're there. So we do make sure you get a skip the line ticket to the Cité du Vin to learn about the wine, and also we'll give you some, if you wish, some great recommendations for dinner. Of course, France very famous for its gastronomy. It's got some incredible restaurants in the Bordeaux area that we can give you little tips, perhaps where to visit. And of an evening, I would highly recommend heading to the Place de la Bourse for a lovely picture. It's the main square in Bordeaux where you see those fantastic tourist photos. So you're going to get 2 nights in Bordeaux before traveling on, as I say, to the Basque region, starting in San Sebastian. San Sebastian, famous for its beaches again, but much like Malaga, it's much more than that. Very famous for its art and its sculptures as much as anything. There's a lot of Basque art to be seen there. There's a lovely museum called the Museo de San Telmo. It's also famous for a lot of sculpting. It has a sculpture called the Combo of the Winds, which is a very iconic sculpture down in San Sebastian. And lots of great palaces as well, historic monuments, the Miramar Palace, to name one. And we do include a hop-on, hop-off sightseeing tour of the city, so you can explore the region. And also you're going to have, perhaps another full day yourself to relax on the beach. Earlier I mentioned some of the gastronomic tours that we offer. We do include a pincho tour in San Sebastian as well. So you get to visit the local pincho bars and experience that local cuisine, that finger food down in San Sebastian, the pinchos that it's so famous for. We also get to spend some time in Bilbao. Again, I mentioned earlier, you get to visit the Guggenheim Museum, very famous for its architecture and contemporary art as well. And we include, again, a gastronomic walking tour of Bilbao. This one's actually paired up with local wines as well, so you'll get to enjoy the best of the miniature cuisine there along with some local wines. And again, in Bilbao, we include a hop-on, hop-off pass for you to get around the city. We often like to do that. Basically, it takes care of all your transportation, especially in some of the larger cities, so you don't have to worry about how you get around. Of course, many people do like to explore on foot as well, but we include the hop-on, hop-off pass just to make it a bit easier for you to get around the city should you wish. Just to talk a little bit about the travel in Spain as well. So I mentioned earlier, it's Renfe that operate the services. The high-speed trains are called the AVE trains in Spain. Many of you, perhaps I'm sure, have traveled on the trains in Spain. If you have, then you'll know how comfortable and how relaxing they are. Really is first-class service throughout. It doesn't really matter if you're in their standard class, which is Turista, or their first class, which they call Preferente. You get fantastic service, fantastic comfort, always guaranteed. Really nice views. If you are somebody that's accustomed to traveling in first class, then absolutely upgrade to Preferente. But I'll be honest with you, the standard class service in Spain is more than adequate. It's nothing like what you would experience in the UK, of course. It's a much more high quality way of travel. So if you look to see what perhaps the price difference is between the two, then just let us know and we can give you those price differentials. But the traveling itself throughout Spain is one of the real highlights, I think, of these trips, because it's so relaxing. And you can just see that fantastic scenery whistle by as you travel between destinations. So please, if you're looking for any more information on the trains themselves, on the differences between standard and first class, the prices, please do let us know. But just to give you an idea that if you haven't traveled in Spain, you have absolutely no worries at all about the level of comfort or service you'll experience on board. It's a fantastic way to travel across the country. Now we're going to look at one of our longer holidays in Spain, somebody perhaps who might have a couple of weeks to spend. We've got a 14-night, 15-day classic Spain holiday. Features many of the destinations that we've already spoken about, to the Andalusian region, Malaga, Granada, Cordoba, Seville, and pairs them up with Barcelona and Madrid. So it actually starts with a flight into Madrid, 3 nights there, travel down to the Andalusian region, train travel up to Barcelona for 3 nights there, and then the train back from Barcelona, so that high-speed TGV to Paris, hop between stations, and then the Eurostar back to London. So again, we include as many highlights and tours and excursions as we can for you to make the most out of your time. We've already taken a look at Granada and Cordoba. We also include Seville in our Andalusian trips, and that's included in this particular package as well. Seville, again, very historical, originally founded as a Roman city, now home actually to 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, the most famous, of course, being the Alcazar Palace, a collage of architectural styles, famous cathedral there as well, which is famed for its, obviously its beauty, but also because of the fact it's the burial site of Christopher Columbus as well, which Seville is very famous for. Seville also houses the largest wooden structure in the world called the Metropole Parasol, which contains a market, a lovely terrace observatory. So you're going to get a couple of nights in Seville along with Granada, along with Cordoba. So not just the Alhambra, not just the Mesquita, but also the Alcazar Palace as well on this trip. And again, in Seville, we do have you at the Hospes Hotel. So this is the Las Casas del Rey de Baeza in Seville, right in the center of the city, very close to the Museum of Fine Arts and close to the Flamenco Dance Museum. Seville, I should mention, is all very famous for its flamenco dancing, and we do have an option to see a flamenco dance if you wish. Doesn't come as included in the packages, but we can get tickets for you to see some flamenco dancing while you're in Seville, should you wish to. But it's very famous for that as well, and the hotel that we have in Seville is right in downtown Seville, very close to those museums and very close to the Flamenco Dance Museum as well. Going to spend some time in Barcelona and Madrid. I mean, Barcelona and Madrid, they speak for themselves, really. There's not a huge amount for me to say. I'm sure you're all very familiar with these 2 cities, but we do include a hop-on, hop-off tour around Barcelona and Madrid. Both cities are, if you haven't been, they are quite sparse. They're very spread out. Barcelona, of course, lots of contrasts. It has the man-made beach. It has the architecture, the Gaudi architecture, the Sagrada Familia, which we include tickets to. You've got Park Güell, Montjuic for those fantastic views, the cable cars as well. So we do give you 3 nights, 2 full days in Barcelona. Of course, you've got the Gothic Quarter. There's so much to mention in Barcelona. So you get 3 nights, 2 full days in Barcelona. You also get 3 nights, 2 full days in Madrid. Madrid, perhaps most famous for the Prado Museum. We do include skip the line tickets and a tour of the Prado Museum as well. So you will have an expert guide walk you around the Prado Museum and talk you through kind of that collection of European art as well. So we want to make sure that you can see the Prado Museum while you're in Madrid. And again, you're going to have 2 full days to explore the wider area and all that Madrid culturally has to offer. So we'll take some time now to look at another region, the Galician region of Spain. And we do dip into Portugal here as well. You'll have a night in Porto before you depart. So this particular trip starts with a flight down to La Coruña, 2 nights in La Coruña, and then you'll travel down to Santiago Compostela, very famous for being the final stop of the Pilgrim's Trail, and then Pontevedra, Vigo, and Porto. Again, flights in and out. If you did want to travel to La Coruña by train, you can do it. Takes about 2 days, 2 full days to get down to A Coruña by train, and then it'd be the same heading back from Porto. Unfortunately, they have currently discontinued the sleeper trains in and out of Portugal, so it does take a bit longer than it used to get in and out by train. But again, if you are looking to do it all by the rails, then we could absolutely look into that for you. But this one is flights in and out, and then it's a 9-night, 10-day trip around the Galician region and into Porto. So starting with 2 nights in A Coruña, a port city, a very famous medieval district as well. It's got some lovely archaeological museums. It's got a fantastic castle called the Castillo de San Anton. Probably most famous though for a Roman lighthouse that it has called the Torre de Hercules. And it also is where Estrella beer comes from, Estrella Galician lager. So you'll often see many of the locals relaxing of an evening, sipping on an Estrella beer. Obviously, it's coastal, so it does have some lovely soft sand beaches and some immaculate little bays as well, which you can wander around and explore. So lovely place to start the trip. Quite unique, actually, A Coruña. You can see, I suppose, geographically there, it looks quite unique, and it is. It's a lovely place to start the trip. And then it's on to Santiago to Compostela. As I mentioned earlier, very famous for being part of the Pilgrims Trail, very historic. We include a walking tour of the old town. The old town itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You will get an expert guide who'll walk you around the cathedral, talk to you about the history of the city, take you to the places that some tourists would miss, hidden squares, small streets, little markets as well. Make sure that you get the absolute best views of the cathedral. So we do make sure that you get an expert guide walking tour in Santiago de Compostela. You'll also see Pontevedra and a stop in Vigo. Vigo, very famous for industry and culture. It's home to a huge fishing port alongside some fascinating ancient Roman ruins, neoclassical churches. It's got a very authentic Galician old town, which slopes right above the marina for some fantastic views. Got some great fresh seafood, as you can imagine, being a port town and famous for its fishing. Also, it's got a lovely area called Bayona, just a short bus ride away, which again itself is a lovely, quaint little fishing port and has a very famous castle, an impressive castle, the Castillo de Monterreal. It's in a kind of elevated position. The views from the castle give fantastic observation over the surrounding coastline. So that's something we would recommend while you're in Vigo. It's just a short trip away, and Vigo itself is quite small, so you can see Vigo probably in half a day. The surrounding area as well is very nice to take a short journey out to. And as I say, we'll give you some recommendations, but this area of Bayona is very nice to visit for some fantastic views of the surrounding area. And then, as I mentioned, finally, you will finish off in Porto. Fantastic place to spend the day. We only include 1 night in Porto in this particular package, but of course you can extend that to 2 or 3 nights if you wish. And we do make sure that you have a hop-on, hop-off city tour pass as well, so you can get around the city. You can travel down the Douro River. You've got those fantastic, colourful houses that line the hills, bell towers, churches, intricate architecture. The Ribeira district, Porto's historic centre, very famous indeed, another UNESCO listed heritage site. And of course you've got the Dom Louis Bridge, which is an incredible vantage point to look over the city and experience those fantastic views of Porto, along with the cable cars that you see there. So if you have got to head for heights, many of these cities do have fantastic cable cars to give you a perfect way to observe the surrounding area. Also very famous for its food, of course, lots of traditional markets around Porto. There's a famous market called the Mercado de BILBAO, which we'd recommend. Very famous for traditional foods, produce, great place to stop for lunch. So when you do speak to any of our consultants, if you are looking for places to eat, places to shop, places to visit, historical sites, they'll be able to give you all the information there. We're more than just a rail company who offer hotels. We do all the excursions and any bits of information that you might need from us as well. We're more than happy to provide you with. Okay, so the final holiday we're going to look at today is the most luxurious way to travel around Spain and the Andalusian region in particular, and that's on board the ALHAMBRA. This is an 11-night, 12-day trip. You actually spend 6 nights on board the train. 3 nights in Madrid and 2 nights in Seville. It really is pure luxury on board the Al-Andalus. There's no better way really to discover a true Andalusia, I would say, than traveling on the Al-Andalus train. Definitely one of the world's most spectacular, most luxurious, most beautiful trains. Spain's equivalent of the Orient Express, I would say. The Orient Express, of course, incredibly famous for traveling between London and Venice, or Paris and Venice. The Al-Andalus, not quite as famous, but definitely as spectacular. So we'll have a look at what lives are like on board in just a moment. But you'll see Granada, Cordoba, Seville. You'll also get to see Ronda, Jerez, and Cadiz on this trip as well. So you've got to experience a bit more off the beaten path, shall we say, and some of the tours and sites that your average tourist might not get to see while you're on board the Al-Andalus train. So you'll all have private cabins whilst on board, as you would expect. They all come with ensuite toilets and showers. There's actually the option to have a deluxe room or a grand class room. The difference really is the deluxe rooms are slightly larger and will have double beds. The grand class rooms do have 2 lower berth beds, but they are single beds. But that is a plus of this particular service. A lot of the sleeper trains, even the luxury trains across Europe, you will have to have bunks on board because of the size of the cabins. On the Al-Andalus, they are all lower berth bunks, so you will be able to kind of get that great night's sleep whilst you're on board for the 6 nights. You also have your own private porter on board as well, who'll take care of you 24 hours a day whilst you're on the train. During the day, of course, these beds will fold down to comfortable couches. It'd be your own private lounge, I suppose you could say, and you can relax. And they have these big windows as well that you can see the fantastic Andalusian scenery go by as you relax in your cabin. It also has 4 fantastic lounge cars, really great areas to relax, meet your fellow travelers. Train travel is often a communal affair, especially on these more luxury trains where you've got these communal areas and you can congregate with your fellow passengers, learn a bit more about them, and just have a nice relaxing time. So there's 4 of these lounge cars on board. They date back to the 1920s. It's a very historical train. The British royal family actually used the carriages back in the days to travel in France between Calais and the Côte d'Azur. It's got a lot of history to these carriages. They have music recitals in these cars at the end of each day as well, and the staff on board are also experts in the surrounding area, the culture, the nature, the history, the food. So they'll be able to talk you through anything you might wish to know while you're on board the train. Lovely bar area, again, where you can sit and relax with your fellow passengers. So teas, coffees, wines, beers, liqueurs, all provided on board. As I say, it's 6 days, 6 nights on board. But most evenings you'll be on board the train. Most days you'll actually be out exploring the area. So you'll have expert guided visits to the surrounding areas, all tours, monument entries, fees, your travel to and from the destinations, coach travel, all private travel is all included. So it's more than just a rail journey. It's a cultural experience, and it's a way to experience maybe 6, 7, 8 different towns and cities around the Andalusian region of Spain, whilst experiencing your travel in real luxury. So all food is included on board the train. Breakfast is served daily, both a la carte and buffet, depending on what you'd like. You also have lunches and dinners on board. Lunch sometimes will be in the destinations, depending on the time of day, but all dinners will be served on board. They're exquisite menus. They have prestigious chefs on board, local traditional dishes of Spanish cuisine. But they'll have a range of options as well. So if perhaps Spanish cuisine every day isn't quite what you'd be after, then they do have other options as well. But it's a very, very nice way to experience the gastronomy of Spain, because it will be, I wouldn't say Michelin star quality, but it will be very close to that, and it'll be traditional local produce cooked freshly on board every evening for you. Depending on how many you're traveling with as well, it can be very private or you can be communal. It's completely up to you. So you can have tables of 4, tables of 6, or just tables of 2, depending on who you're traveling with. A couple of those areas that we haven't mentioned so far, you're going to visit Jerez as well, very famous for its dancing horses, its sherry, of course, which hopefully you'll get to sample lots of should you wish. And you're going to visit UBEDA as well, a Moorish city. Again, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, famous for its palaces and chapels. Here you can see the Chapel of El Salvador, and you'll get free time in all the destinations. Jerez and UBEDA are 2 we haven't mentioned so far, but you'll get kind of half a day to explore all of these different cities and regions before heading back to the train for your dinner and your evening on board. So that concludes our webinar today. 5 of our most popular holidays and options around Spain. If you haven't seen something perhaps that catches your eye, then as I mentioned earlier, we do have our brochures, and also just take a look on our website. I'm sure many of you came from our website in the first place, but if you haven't been onto the Railbookers site, you'll see the range of holidays that we have across Spain, Europe, and worldwide. But I'll give you a rest from my voice for a couple of moments, which I'm sure you'll be happy to hear. And if there are any questions that I can answer for you, do just pop them into the questions box, and I'll come back and I'll answer as many of them as I can before we finish up. Thanks ever so much. Okay, thanks everyone. So we do have a couple of questions that have come through. I've got a couple of questions from Andrew, actually. Thanks, Andrew, for posting these. First one says, what happens if a connection is missed anywhere in Europe as a result of a late running service? So yeah, good question, Andrew. It can happen, of course. You know, we hope it doesn't, but there's always the potential for a late running service. So it depends on where you're traveling to, of course. If there's a late running service and you miss the connection, first first thing to do is to get in touch with ourselves if you think you're going to miss your connecting train. And we can then give you all the information that you need to perhaps catch the next train that's running that day. If it is going to hamper your ability to get to your destination that evening, then we will put you up in a hotel overnight somewhere. So we'll take care of that. It's unusual that there are delays, which mean you can't actually get to your final destination on that day. If that's the case, as I say, we'll put you in a hotel, but we will make sure that if you miss a service, then either we book your reservations onto the next train that's running, or sometimes they're open tickets, so you will actually just be able to jump onto the next service. It depends what country you're in, but first thing to do really is just to get in contact with us. We'll be able to provide you with all the information that you need. But we've never had anybody that's been stranded anywhere, I can tell you that much. So although it does happen, we're always on hand to make sure that you can get to your next destination without any trouble. It's really, that's up to us to help you. So make sure that does help. That does happen, then give us a call. And Andrew also asks if our cover that I mentioned, the flexibility offer that we have, covers trips taken after the 30th of September. It does. Sorry if I didn't explain it correctly. So it's for any bookings made up until the 30th of September right now. The date that you travel isn't affected by the maximum flexibility policy. So you could be traveling next April, but as long as you've booked it before the 30th of September this year, then that trip is covered by our maximum flexibility policy. So it isn't for travel before the 30th of September, it's for all bookings made before the 30th of September for travel. And travel is actually travel within the next 12 months. So, you know, we're trying to be as flexible as possible with all our customers right now. And just finally, we did also have one more question from Mary, who was asking about the hotels. She mentioned that I'd spoken about the hospice hotels, which, you know, she said look very nice. But if there were hotels that she was looking to stay in herself, could we accommodate in any hotels? And the answer to that is we don't have access to every single hotel out there. We do work with our partners and have relationships with certain hotels in each destination. We do have a range between 3-star and 5-star luxury. The first thing we do if you do have a hotel that you wish to stay in is to see, of course, if that's something that we can book for you. If not, then what we'd ideally do is find out exactly what it is about that particular hotel that you like and try and match it with one of ours that we have. We do have a range, like I say, so hopefully we can find something that's to your taste and to your liking, but we aren't able to book every single hotel, I'm afraid. The ones we do use have been handpicked by our product managers, who are lucky enough to go out and about and visit these hotels and meet the owners and make sure that they're up to scratch and they're of a quality that we would expect for one of our Railbookers holidays. So a very good question, Mary, and thanks for asking it. But not every single hotel, but hopefully one that will be to your liking. Okay, and that was all for today. That's all the questions we've had. So thanks ever so much to you all for joining me for this webinar. I do hope that you found it interesting and there was at least a few things that you can take away from it to perhaps help you plan your next holidays. So yeah, just remains for me to say have a lovely rest of your day, lovely week. Stay safe, everybody, and hopefully we'll speak to you all soon. Okay, take care now. Bye-bye.